Alright guys, today I'm going to do a quick hat format tier list. Now here are the decks that I'm going to cover. Not an in-depth one because there's a lot of decks that I'm not too familiar with, but these are the decks that have been... I just got this list off tiermaker.com, but a lot of these decks I've seen on the channel because we've been doing hat for what now? Like 3 months, I think? So yeah, I'm gonna go over how I do the rankings. It's kind of similar to the one I did for Edison format a few months ago. I look at S when it comes to S tier as a deck that I would feel strongly about playing at, like, at a big event like a YCS Ultimate Time Wizard RBT. I would feel strongly that I feel like I could do well with that deck. So those are the S tier decks. A tier are the ones that I would consider playing at a big event, but I'm not as strongly confident. But I would maybe consider playing them at a big event. That's how I look at A tier. B tier are decks that I probably wouldn't take. I wouldn't take to a major event, but I could see myself winning locals with it. That's the B tier. And C tier is the decks that I feel I would struggle. Like, I probably couldn't even win locals with this deck. Again, this is just my opinion. Let me know how you guys feel in the comments, what you agree with and disagree with. So we'll go starting with order. We can start with Bujin. Now, this deck, uh, it's definitely not S tier. It's either A or B for Bujin. Like, when this deck goes first, it can be hard to beat. I think it can be any deck when it goes first, except maybe Spellbooks. I think Spellbooks like the only bad matchup. But yeah, when it goes first, they almost always. I mean, they play 3 Tenki, 3 Yamato, 3 Duality, 3 Upsurge, so they're highly likely to open Yamato. But the side deck kind of hurts it, so yeah. I would put it in A tier. That's where I would put Bujins. Next up is Constellar. Before I get to Constellar, I want to talk about Bujins. So Bujins have actually done pretty well on the channel. Not enough people I feel are playing the deck, but the few that have played have done well. Now, Constellar is a deck I've only seen my friend John Vigil play it, and it's an okay deck. They kind of like open Pleiades if they go first, but their Soul Charge is okay. They play Sanctum. It's an alright deck. I don't think I would play it at a big event, though. I don't think it's that great, so I would put this one in B tier. Alright. Next up is Cyber Dragon. Now, this is a deck I saw my friend Mario play. I'm not too familiar with it, but I don't think it's that great. I think there's just way better decks. This one I think I would even struggle to win locals with it. So I'll put this one in C tier. Next up is Evil Swarm. So where do I rank Evil Swarm? This deck has some good matchups, but then has the matchups where it's supposed to be favored, like Light Swarm. Light Swarm can, I guess, make rank 4s to deal with Ophion. So you have to build your deck to kind of like stop 101 and Exciton Knight. But I will say this, that Pandemic spell is really good. But I think this deck just comes down to the bracket. I feel like I could win locals, but I don't think I would play this at a big event. So I would put this one in B tier. At the end, I'll rank the decks in order. Right now, I'm just trying to get them in the tiers. But yes, I'll put Evil Swarm at the B tier. If you get paired against a lot of Sylvans and Mythic Ruler decks, and yeah, you could probably do well with this deck. But at the same time, you still have to go first. And one thing I will say is Rivalry hurts this deck pretty bad, and so does Flying Sea. So this deck has a lot of weaknesses, so that's why I would not put it in A tier. That one's B tier. Next up is Gear Gear. This one's S tier. I think it's one of the most consistent decks. Doesn't have too many weaknesses. I think Flying Sea kind of hurts it, but that's about it. Like, Rivalry doesn't hurt it. Max C doesn't hurt it. I guess maybe like Spawn Trap Removal kind of hurts it, but it's just a solid. They play 3 Gear, 3 Armor, 3 Arsenal. That's 9 cards. You can play Upsnarl. Yeah, this deck I would feel strongly if I were to play it. Now, the only issue is going second. It can be kind of bad, but this deck's really consistent, so S tier. And has a good hat matchup, which is really important. Next up is GK. I'm not a big fan of this deck. This is definitely not an A tier. It's either B or C. Do I think I could win locals with this deck? Oh no, do I? I mean, you can play Splash the Artifacts in this deck, but you only have one. There's 3 MSTs, but I feel like maybe you can steal some games, game 1 with Necro Valley, but too many Ignitions going around, too many Sanctums. I would have to put this one in the C tier. Next up is the Hat deck. I'm going to just cram all 3 versions of the Hat deck in this one. The Cat deck, Karkar. This is an S tier deck. I mean, it's performed the best at the locals It's not a hard deck to play either. I mean, neither is Giria, but it's just a strong deck. Sanctum's a good card. Murmileo. I personally probably wouldn't play the hands, but you can also splash Soul Charge in there, hand traps. It's just a good control deck, so yeah, definitely S tier. Next up is, oh, this one's tough to rank. Herratic Rulers. How do I feel about Herratic Rulers? We see my friend Dennis do really well with this deck, but I think, is it the deck carrying him or is it more him? I think it's more him. I gave him more credit than I give the deck. So I guess Mythic Rulers on this list too. See, I don't know which version is better. I guess we'll get to Mythic Rulers when we get there. But the thing is, this deck does have Wingbeat that can make pretty big boards. Wingbeat is really the thing that why I'm considering putting it in S tier, but I would say A. I don't think I would feel like it's a deck I would strongly consider playing, but I don't feel as confident with this deck as I do a Geargia deck or a Had deck. I think maybe it's missing that consistency. So yeah, this one's A tier. Infernity. This is a really strong deck going first. It could just outright win the game as a good soul charge. But I think the problem with this deck is it gets hurt by a lot of the side cards. Like DD Crow, Maxi, Emptiness, a lot. So going second, it's not as strong. So I'm going to put this one in A tier. But like I said, it's close. Next up, Kawaki Miru. This is a deck I did see my friend Alfred play twice on the channel. I'm not too familiar. It's like a Fire Fist deck. So do I think I can win locals with it? Probably not. So this one goes in C tier. Next up is Lights from World. This is a deck that many people on my locals have played, and I do think it's a little bricky. Sometimes they just draw too many, like, I don't know. I can't put this one S tier. I don't think it has the consistency of Gear or Hat, but it is powerful. It has a good soul charge, so I will put this one in the A tier. Next up, Madolche. Now, this is a deck I actually played during the actual Hat Nats that year. I actually played this deck. This one is also A tier, just because Tiramisu is really strong. But it doesn't play Soul Charge. I guess you could splash people play hands in this deck. You splash the artifacts in there as well. It's a solid deck, but definitely not S tier. Look, if I could go back in time, I probably wouldn't play this deck. But the reason I played this deck at the Nats that year was because I felt it had a good Geargia matchup, and I couldn't beat Geargia. But yeah, if I could go back in time, I probably wouldn't play this deck at that Nationals. I did okay. I think I almost made day 2 at Nats that year. I think I lost like round 9 or something like that. Next up is Mermail. Now, this is a deck that I actually underestimated it. I think it's a lot better than I gave it credit for. I still don't feel I still think I wouldn't feel as confident as the S tier decks, but it's still good. Marksman is going to help you out in some matchups. But I feel the weakness of this deck is Maxi hurts it, and Trap Trick Trap Hole Nightmare hurts Megalo and Tias pretty bad. So, yeah, still a strong deck. Has a good soul charge, so A tier. Next up is Mythic Ruler. This is kind of like the same thing with Herratics. So to me, I kind of look at them at the same level, Mythic Ruler and Herratics. But Herratics have a better wing beat, so yeah, I can't put this one over Herratics. It would have to be A tier. Next up is Spellbooks. See, I can't put this deck A tier. I'll put it B tier. I don't think I would feel strongly enough to play this deck at a big event. It relies too much on, Fate's at 1. If Fate was at 3, maybe I could put it in A tier. It relies a lot on Tower, and yeah, I'm just not a fan of this deck. I would put it in B tier. I could win locals with it, I think, but I would probably never consider playing this deck at a big event. And last up is Sylvan's. This one I feel is S tier. I mean, we've seen this deck I've played on the channel a few times. I've actually won 3 times. I've been performing well with the deck. I almost always make top cut, which I can't say the same in Edison. I actually struggle more in Edison than I do in Hat format. And this is because this deck has just a powerful... Like, if I go first and open Lone Fire Soul Charge, not many decks can break that board, especially if I have Emptiness to back it up. And you play 3 Sylvan Charity, you have a lot of follow-up. Curry Bandit turn 1 is really strong, so... Yeah, S tier. So now let's rank them. Cyber Giants, Gravekeepers, Kawakis. Gravekeepers is the deck I'm most familiar with, so I'll put this one as the best one in the C tier column. Now, Cyber Giants, Kawakis... I think maybe the Kawaki deck. I'm not. I don't believe in that Cyber Dragon deck. All right, next up, Constellar, Evil Swarm, and Spellbooks. This one's tough. I feel the Evil Swarm deck has too many bad matchups, so I can't put the Evil Swarm deck. I would probably put Spellbooks as the best, Constellar second, and an Evil Swarm third. That's how I would rank the B tier. Maybe we shouldn't leave A tier for the end because this one's going to be the hardest. So we'll go to the S tier. I think Geargia. Probably I would have to say Geargia. It's just the safe pick. It's so consistent with 3 armor, 3 arsenal, 3. Like if I win the Dire with Geargia, I feel good. Now Sylvan's is can be a little bricky because of the red trees, and sometimes you just don't see Sylvan Charity. So Hat has 3 Murmileo, 3 Sanctum. Yeah, I'll put Geargia 1, Hat 2, Sylvan 3 the way it is here. Now let's go to the A tier. This one's going to be the hardest. So out of these decks, which one would I consider playing? Would I say Boujins? But I don't like Boujins going second. So what would be the pick? Infernity's for the best deck in the A tier column. I'll probably go with Heradic Rulers because of Wing Beat. I would say this is probably like the best deck. I don't know. This is that's why I left this one to the end. Maybe we should go from the weakest deck. That would be easier. I would say my least favorite of these decks is probably Madolche. It's probably my least favorite. Madolche or Bujin? Probably Madolche. I mean, they have a few starters with the 3 Stratos. What's it, Mageline and then Angeli, but it gets hurt by Max C and a few other cards. So yeah, this one would be there. Then I would probably say Bujins because I don't like this deck going second. But when it goes first, it's just consistent. I have to think much. It's pretty helmet deck. But still, I'll put that one as the second worst. Next, what would be the third weakest deck? So Madolche is the weakest, then Bujin. I would say out of all these decks, probably Lightsworn Ruler is the... Yeah, Lightsworn Ruler seems like the... I've seen my friends playing it. The deck can be a little inconsistent at times, so I would put that one third. So then the top 4 would be Hieratic, Mythic, Mermail, and Infernity. I'd probably say Mermail just because, I don't know, it's just weak to a lot of cards. So I'll put Mermail. So then the top 3 would be Hieratic Ruler, Infernity, and Mythic Ruler. Oh, this one's tough. I feel the Hieratic Ruler and the Mythic Ruler are kind of like the same deck. So, yeah, but if you go first, I've seen Infinities. When they go first, man, I would have to say Infinity is probably the best deck. I would go Mythic Ruler, Hieratic Ruler, then Infernity. But not, I feel like Infinity's not good enough to be S tier. But yeah, that's my ranking. All right, let me know what you guys agree with, disagree with. What should be higher? What should be lower? Yeah, I hope you guys enjoy that tier list. It's a small one. There was way more in-depth ones, but I'm not gonna do that. But hope you guys enjoyed it. Also, check out the link in the description. I have a coupon code for 5% off Yu-Gi-Oh! Singles and product at Epic Cards and Games. The code is my first and last name, Oscar Zelaya, one word, all caps. Yep, I'll see all you guys next time.